This week on Arizona Illustrated, the River Woman, an American icon.
Constantly working to bring down that dam. Dam. That's my license plate.
Causing Fitz, one stroke at a time.
If I don't get hate mail, I feel so distressed.
Insecta, a love affair.
Mating Goniotropis, too. That's incredible.
And the Gnome Festival. Welcome to Arizona Illustrated. I'm Tom McNamara. On November 1st, the world lost an American icon, singer and environmental activist Katie Lee. The 98-year-old desert goddess, as she was known, passed away at her home in Jerome, Arizona. Producer Gisela Tellis visited with Lee in 2015, capturing her take on life, love, and the loss of her beloved Glen Canyon.
The first thing I say every morning when I get is, that is my favorite word. My favorite old English word. It says it feels good. It's a great word. My name is Katie Lee, and I'm probably best known for my bad mouth and my activism. I wish I were recognized more for my writing, because I don't think my writing's bad at all.
In her 95 years, Katie Lee has found recognition for many of her talents. There was a time when she was known as an actress, followed by a decade touring the country as a folk singer. But wherever she went, she felt the pull of the desert she'd known as a child.
I was raised in Tucson. I was so lucky to have a mom and dad, a dad who was like a child, who treated me like a kid because he was a kid, and my mother on the other side, who was the artist in the family, the singer, the teacher. God, how lucky can you get? And they didn't pamper me. I was outdoors all the time. My dad, when I was 12 years old, bought me a Remington octagon barrel shotgun and taught me how to shoot, how to use it, how not to use it, and how never to use it. And during the war, I kept my family in rabbits and quail. I used to shoot the heads off quail. I must have been pretty good, because not anymore. Believe me, I can hardly hang on to my coffee cup.
As a young woman, Katie tried her luck in Hollywood, where she worked in film and radio for 6 years. Then, on a visit to her mother in Tucson, Katie saw something that would change her life. A film by her friend, Tad Nichols, about running the Colorado River through the Grand Canyon.
And when I saw that movie, I just said, how do I get there? I can't do that. It was $500 for the upper half and $500 for the lower half. And I was making what? Maybe $20 a week out in Hollywood, no matter what I did. And about 10 o'clock at night, later that month, Tad calls me and he said, you want to run the Grand Canyon? And I said, I can't do that. I told you, you know I don't have that money. And he said, no, you can come for just your food, which is about $50. You pay $50 and bring your guitar and sing to the people on the beach at night. So that's what I did, and that's how I got to the river. But then the river became part of me, and still is, because I don't think I had been anything like the person I am until that river just picked me up and took me along. To me, it's just like life, the way life flows, the way it goes along, and it comes back and it forms eddies, and there you're in this eddy and you don't know which way to go or what to do, and next thing you know, you're going over rapids and you just are elated, and then the next thing you know, you're in this calm water and just sort of swirling around easy, and that's life. You know, that's a river.
While on a river run, Katie fell in love with a stretch of the Colorado called Glen Canyon.
Eden couldn't have touched this place. 125 side canyons, each one of them different. Each one of them with a voice and a look and a feeling of its own. The breezes, they talk to you, and you can talk back and get answers. These floats on the Glen, where there aren't any rapids really, yeah, there's some few that I used to swim through, but it's just a laid-back scene, and you have a chance to look around and get to know the place and understand what makes this do that and what makes that do this, and wow, look at that. And some of the vistas were so beautiful, we just stood there and cried. How come? Here I go.
Katie lost Glen Canyon as she knew it when the Glen Canyon Dam was completed in 1963.
And that's when I started writing articles about it. I started singing, writing songs about it. I put out 2 or 3 CDs about it. And from then on, it was just constantly working to bring down that dam. And I'm still at it. Dam. That's my license plate.
The dam remains, and Katie's activism and anger have never abated.
I feel about that dam just like I've always felt about it. I'd like to blow it up. If I knew how, I'd do that, but I don't know how. And that's probably very fortunate. Rivers are supposed to run. They're not supposed to be dammed up. They're healthy that way. They feed the planet. It's like the veins in your arm full of blood. Okay, you dam them up, what do you get? An aneurysm. And that's what these rivers have. Aneurysms, poor things.
In 1971, Katie settled in the central Arizona mining town of Jerome. Today, it's where she writes in a windowless room tucked into her home. It's where she reads the emails and listens to the songs she has inspired.
I think that's so cool. How nice of him to do that for me.
In quiet moments, it's where she looks out over the vast valley below. But despite the roots she's grown, Katie Lee still believes the best way to wake up to life is to venture into the world's wilder places.
When you're out there and you are on your own and you know you have to take care of yourself, all your senses sharpen. Your smell, your sight, your hearing, your touch. Everything comes out of the skin and becomes part of what's around you. And if you can do that, you're going to learn some things about yourself that will keep you from making the wrong choices, that will point a direction for you. All you got to do is listen and look.
Katie Lee may be gone, but the controversy around Glen Canyon's fate and the efforts to restore it continue and will likely go on for some time to come. Editorial cartoonist, writer, Pulitzer finalist, and Tucson native David Fitzsimmons has been called many things, some of them not so nice. And that's because for over 3 prolific decades in journalism, he's been making Americans laugh, cry, scream, and cringe, all with the point of a pen.
I'm Dave Fitzsimmons. I'm the editorial cartoonist and humor columnist for the Arizona Daily Star. We're in beautiful Tucson, Arizona, and we are in my studio, Fitz's studio. So I come in here generally around 7. First thing I do is I swallow as much internet news as I possibly can. And then I devote a year and a half to answering the 3,000 emails. And by then, somehow, magically, ideas start to appear in my head. And then I venture over here to my beloved drawing board. And then I will sit here and sketch and ink until about 11, maybe noon. I do a lot of cartoons about public education or about gun control. I hope that those cartoons will provoke readers into thinking. It will be seen in anywhere between 700 to 800 sites around the world. And then when I'm finished with a drawing I like, I'll scan it and add color through Photoshop, send it off by generally 1 or 2 in the afternoon, and then more hate mail comes in.
Let's check the old message machine and see what's on there tonight.
Hey, I see your cartoon, I guess you want to call it. You know, classy, give him the finger. That's really nice. You are one stupid bastard, I swear to God. How you survive, I never know. I told you need to get a real job, like making wooden assholes for hobby horses. I think you might qualify for that. Go yourself, asshole.
Hey, Mr. Left-Winger, why don't you try to be fair and balanced instead of proselytizing your left-wing bull? What an asshole you are. Enough said. Watch out.
In America, we have a great tradition of enjoying satire. So, of course, as a consequence of being a political cartoonist and talking about politics, great word, poly, Latin root meaning many, ticks, blood-sucking leeches. Curiously enough, not every American citizen or world citizen agrees with my perspective on the issues. So, yes, I do get hate mail, and yes, I love my hate mail. If I don't get hate mail, I feel so distressed. I'm not doing my job. Great example of hate mail. I have one right here for you. Dear blank. Blank you. Blank your blanking cartoons. Why don't you blank your cartoons up your blank? Signed, Anonymous. Yeah, like I couldn't recognize my mother's handwriting. Right, okay. Sure. Too easy. And I think I probably won't say much about this fellow since I've got at least another 2 years.
I'm very lucky when I've brought this issue up to other cartoonists to talk about this, because I get a lot of supportive mail. It took me a long while to grow accustomed to praise, because honestly, that's really the last thing a satirist is ever hoping for. We're actually hoping to be shot at. I did recently draw a cartoon about a fallen American warrior in the Middle East, because it's just not noticed when these deaths occur. It doesn't make it above the fold anymore. Every death of that nature matters to me, because I grew up in a military family. I'm the first civilian in generations of real men. Both of my brothers served in Vietnam. My father was a master sergeant. So I have a keen understanding of what it's like for a family. When my brothers came back from Vietnam, they slapped the ROTC officer's manual out of my hand. They said, you know, the military's not for you. You're the kind of guy who will be killed first day out by your own men. And one of my brothers said, you know, you got to find another form of service. I thought, well, I was working for the college newspaper. Journalism sounds good. So that's the direction my life took, thanks to them. And I found I loved the newsroom environment. I loved the people in the newsroom. Hey, buddy. Sure. something about reporters and newsies. They're just the most interesting, vigorous people I know, the most intellectually vigorous people I know.
You either really like him or you really don't, and you don't have to agree with him to like him. He has a lot of fans, and I hear from them on letters to the editor of, I don't agree with you, but you hit the nail on the head and you get it. He gets a response either way. I don't mean to say that he's just throwing fire bombs just to get a response. What he does is thoughtful, insightful in many ways, and sometimes just downright funny. So love him or hate him, you can't be neutral on David Fitzsimmons.
Yes. Having been a journalist for 30 years and seen government up close, our democracy is a functioning marvel, and it's certainly well worth preserving. You know, like Franklin and others said, it is worth pledging our sacred honor to preserve and protect. And I feel that way about my newspapers. And I hope that those cartoons will provoke readers into thinking. And I sometimes am so vain, how ridiculous, right? I'm so vain as to think that perhaps my voice will be part of a collective chorus that might affect actual political change in our country. I was kidding. I didn't mean that part, yeah.
Mark your calendars to attend the 4th annual Arroyo Cafe Holiday Show, featuring music from Crystal Stark, the grandsons of the pioneers, and the hilarious Arroyo Cafe Players. David Fitzsimmons hosts the Arroyo Cafe Holiday Show at the Rialto Theater Saturday, December 16th at 1 p.m. When Emmy Award-winning filmmaker Cody Sheehy set off to produce a documentary about insects and the people who study them, he never dreamed that he'd find a love story, one that explores the scientists and their shared passion for insects, and one between the scientists themselves. Here's an excerpt from the film Insecta.
I thought I wanted to be a marine biologist, and I pursued marine biology for my master's degree. I studied marine isopods that live in the South Pacific Islands, and we would, for collecting, I would put on full scuba gear and go diving, and that was a really fantastic and fun experience. I also fell in love with my advisor, who was one of the most amazing, open-hearted people I had ever met. We were in love, and we decided to get married. And it was a lot of big decisions all at one time. I needed to make a shift so that there wouldn't be such an overlap between my professional and personal lives. And so I decided to switch to entomology to study basically the crustaceans of the land. I specialize on bombardier beetles. Bombardier beetles are special carabids. They are these masters of chemistry. They mix chemicals inside of their bodies in a way that creates an exothermic reaction just before it leaves the body of the beetle. My collaborators and I have a grant through the National Science Foundation where we're able to look at the genes involved in the production of defensive chemicals for these bombardier beetles. They'll blast you when you collect them, and it doesn't hurt too bad. It's not as hot as Brachinus, the other lineage of bombardier. It's not the boiling point of water, but it's definitely a bit of a shock. We would have turned around and driven away.
Yeah, thought it was a Klan movie.
Yeah. Amityville. Yeah. My personal mission tonight is to try to get more of those new species, the small-bodied ones, but also to get as many of the larger Gonitropus kunstnai as possible.
I've gone beyond this point, so we're going to be in new territory.
But once you've seen a few of them, you get an eye for it. And then just out of the corner of your eye, you'll see a black something moving at just the right speed, and it'll catch your attention, and you turn, and it'll usually be just out of reach. I used to work on marine crustaceans, and insects are basically just flying crustaceans. So. But the most exciting thing I ever did was hook up with Wendy on a Polynesia expedition to Tahiti and Guam and Fiji, and that was the beginning of Wendy and I.
Golly!
Oh my gosh, there
Mating Goniotropus, too. That's incredible.
Was that the noise they made?
Yeah,
Yes,
those were, that
spraying.
noise was the blast.
That sounds worse than Burkinus.
Oh, I'm so happy.
Oh, no, there's a big
Even
yeah.
though I got some burning on my fingers from the
they
bombardier
like that.
blast.
That's cool. But no.
That's very fun. Wow. Now here, that is probably Cymindus. Today we're looking at a malaise trap sample, and that is a kind of a flight intercept trap. So this is a really convenient way to trap a lot of insects. I think what's extraordinary about looking through a malaise trap sample is that there's so many different shapes and colors and textures. I think the other thing about insects that's amazing is that they've been here for a lot longer, and they dominate Earth. They're in pretty much every habitat except for like benthic in the sea. Being in all of these different habitats and occupying all these different niches is what has allowed them to modify all these different structures to fit those spaces. And so that's part of it too, is that the story is kind of writ in the body. Flies generally have piercing/sucking mouth parts. They look like puppies. They've got these beautiful little brown, wide-spaced eyes. Wow, that has a really crazy mouth too. Whoa, this one has a crazy abdomen. So insects have an open circulatory system, so their air comes right directly into their body at different points along the whole length of their bodies. And so the spiracles are sort of equivalent to our nostrils. And it's just sort of odd to think about a nostril on your abdomen. When I was an undergraduate at the University of Toronto, and Toronto is considered one of the most multicultural cities in the world by the United Nations. And I would do this in a little room by myself for several hours, and then I would go outside of the museum where I worked and walk on the sidewalk and think, this is not diverse. I guess like the standard setup of people, I'm over it. Is that weird? Like there's just like a limited number of like types and shapes.
You can see the entire film, Insecta, when it premieres at the Loft Cinema on Tuesday, November 28th at 7 p.m. After the screening, director Cody Sheehy and the scientist will discuss the science and the art behind the film. This week on Arizona Profiles, we take you to a uniquely Tucson event, the Gnome Festival, where garden gnomes of all ages gather for a good time and a good cause.
1, 2, 3.
A few years back, one of my employees was recommending that we have a little music festival to kind of showcase local bands and whatnot, and we came up with the idea of Gnome Fest. When we did our first Gnome Fest back in 2012, which was just supposed to be bands, we had all kinds of people show up in gnome costumes and gnome hats, and that's what gave us the idea to kind of push that angle. The goal is to collect some food and donations for the community food bank. We're going to showcase some local bands and hopefully break a Guinness Book World Record for the largest gathering of people dressed as garden gnomes. The current record is 479 gnomes that was set in the UK, and hopefully we'll beat that today.
I hope they beat the record today.
To be gnomes.
Yeah, to be crowned and try to break the world's record.
I'm really hopeful for it this year. The proceeds from this event are going to the community food bank. Our mission is a happy, hunger-free tomorrow.
I really don't know what to expect. We've been, really trying to promote it. We're also going to give a $1,000 credit to the school that brings the most eligible gnomes for our record attempt. Hopefully that brings a bunch out, but just won't know until we have our registration end at 5 and how many have signed up.
I really don't know much about gnomes, but they have pointy red hats or green hats or blue hats. I think they have yellow hats too, so.
I like costumes and weird things, and I especially like them in large numbers. And it'd be nice to have Tucson on the map for being the Guinness Book of World Record holder for the largest number of people dressed as gnomes.
Looks like we had 123 fully Guinness Book required costumed gnomes here at the event this year.
Okay, that one's real.
We didn't quite make it, but we did have a lot of fun. Got some money and food for the food bank, and did get Mansfeld awarded with some money for their music program. So, all good things.
We managed to bring in the most number of students to dress like gnomes. It's going to be great. So some of the limitations for some of our students getting into the music program is just not having an instrument. So this will allow the teachers to get instruments for students who otherwise wouldn't be able to get into the band orchestra or performing arts classes.
Maybe next year we can hit that record.
It's a great event.
Thank you for joining us here on Arizona Illustrated. A reminder that you can see all of our stories online at azpm.org/Arizona Illustrated. We here at Arizona Public Media wish you and your family all the best this holiday season. We'll be taking a bit of a break over the next few weeks. Then we'll be back on January 7th with all new stories and a whole new year. I'm Tom McNamara. See you then.